Being the scapegoat in a narcissistic family is one of the most painful experiences that you can have growing up. But there is something that the scapegoat learns that the golden child may never figure out, and it changes everything. In a narcissistic family system, there are rules. The golden child can do no wrong. They're praised, protected, and put on a pedestal. And the scapegoat, they're blamed for everything. Every problem, every tension, every disappointment gets directed towards them. And for years, the scapegoat believes the story that they're too much, too sensitive, too difficult, that something is fundamentally wrong with them. But here's what that experience quietly builds inside the scapegoat that the golden child never develops. Number one, the scapegoat learns to question the narrative. Because they were blamed for things that weren't their fault, they develop the ability to step back and to ask, is this actually true? Is this actually my fault? That critical thinking skill is something that the golden child never had to develop because they were never questioned. And they were just told they were right. The scapegoat, however, had to learn early that what people had to say about you and what's actually true about you are two very different things. The golden child is still learning that lesson as an adult, and many of them never do. Number two, the scapegoat develops deep empathy. When you've been on the receiving end of unfair treatment your whole life, you become acutely aware of how your words and actions affect other people. You know what it feels like to be dismissed, ignored, and blamed, so you're less likely to do that to others. The golden child was never required to consider anyone else's feelings. Their feelings were always the priority. And you can see that in how many of them show up in their relationships as adults, struggling to understand why their partners feel unseen. Number three, the scapegoat learns who they actually are outside of what they were told. The golden child's identity was built on approval, on being the favorite, on external validation from the narcissistic parent. When you take that away, they often don't know who they are. The scapegoat had to build an identity with no support, no validation, and no safety net. That is brutal. And it's also the reason that so many scapegoats become the most self aware people in every room that they walk into. Number four, the scapegoat recognizes toxic dynamics way faster. Because you lived inside one for years, you know what it feels like when something is off, when someone is manipulating, when you're being blamed unfairly, when a relationship is taking more than it's giving. The golden child often walks straight into toxic relationships and recreates the exact dynamic that they grew up in because for them, that dynamic felt like love. The scapegoat has a radar for it. It doesn't always protect you, but it does mean that you're rarely the last person in the room to see who's but it does mean that you're rarely the last one to see what's really going on. Now, I want to be clear, none of this means that the scapegoat role wasn't damaging. It was. The self doubt, the people pleasing, the freeze response, the difficulty trusting people, those are real wounds that take real work to heal. But I want to challenge the idea that the golden child had it better. They had it easier, and that's not the same thing. Easier does not mean healthier, and praise from a narcissistic parent is not love. It's a leash. The golden child got the praise, but the scapegoat got the wisdom. And wisdom is what actually changes your life. If you're in the process of unlearning the story that your family told about you, that you were too much, too difficult, that you were the problem, I want you to know that story was never true. It was a role assigned to you to protect a system that was never healthy to begin with. And if you're finding yourself freezing in conversations, struggling to speak up, or shutting down when conflict escalates, that's your nervous system responding to years of that dynamic. I put together a free guide to help you to reset after those moments. The link is in the description. Subscribe if this is the kind of content that you need right now. I'll see you in the next video.